Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a great program today. I'm hope you're all have a great week so far, enjoying the holiday season. I'm David Barista. I'm editorial director of Building Design and Construction magazine, as well as Multifamily Pro Plus, which is our multifamily content platform. So on behalf of our entire editorial and business teams, I want to thank you for joining us for this special webinar, which of course is titled Key Trends in the Multifamily Housing Sector for 2025. We are so very excited to have three expert speakers today. They all have storied careers in this market and come from firms that have a very strong focus in the multifamily sector. And we're just pleased and excited and honored to have them join us. So they put in a lot of work for their presentations today, and we're so appreciative. So our three experts, which you'll meet in a few minutes, are going to talk about trends, innovations, opportunities, maybe a little market update in three key subsectors of the multifamily market. We did a similar webinar this time last year where we're more focused on more high-level sectors. Now we're digging a little deeper. So we have a speaker talking about the luxury rental market, mixed-use multifamily projects, and assisted living and memory care facilities. So we hope you find value in these presentations. So before we meet our experts, I'd like to take a moment and thank our sponsors, which are right there. Skip past it. So, this webinar is brought to you by five supporting partners. You can see them there on the slide for our recently released 2024 Multifamily Annual Report. This is our third in a series of annual reports. We've now have published two multifamily, one healthcare, and it's really us editors trying to create what we feel, reach out to the marketplace and create a state of the state of what's happening in two major building sectors, multifamily and healthcare. So our latest report was just posted a month ago or so. It's a 60-page document. It's a PDF and a digital ebook. And it's a state of the state update on the $130 billion multifamily housing construction sector. So what does the report offer? We, of course, have a construction outlook from the multifamily sector, both in 2025 and into 2026. We have three separate top 10 trend stories on subsectors in multifamily. We have a roundup of innovations happening in the marketplace. We basically reach out to the major multifamily firms, AEC firms, and developers and ask them, what's the coolest thing you've done in the past 12 to 18 months? And we pick the best of the best and present those in this report. And then we wrap up in a report with an AIA course, but it really is more of a semi-technical document, a report on emerging trends in exterior design for multifamily buildings. So, of course, we encourage you to go ahead and download it. It's free. There is a short registration. The link is on the slide. And it, of course, is supported by, and this webinar is supported by these five companies. So big thanks to ExecCore, ProWood, Salto, Tamlin, and Unilock. All five companies have supported BD&C programs and editorial projects in some way over recent years. And this is kind of the latest big push. So we really appreciate it. And as you probably know, this webinar is worth one AIA Learning Unit, HSW. And there is, so there are learning objectives. But there is a process, a very simple process to not only get your certificate of completion, but also have us process your AIA credit right away. It's almost in real time. You'll receive essentially a short survey in this browser at the conclusion of this webinar. If you miss it, if you have to leave a little bit early, you will also get this link in an email that will come tomorrow, about 24 hours after the program. So simply just answer a few questions and we will take care of the rest. And it's time to officially meet our experts. And again, all three of these experts, multiple decades in this marketplace and come from major firms that do a ton of design work for all types of multifamily projects. So our experts include Brian Ward. He's Principal and Director of Design with Niles Bolton Associates. So Brian will be presenting on trends in the luxury rental market. And Niles Bolton is number 8 on BD&C's multifamily giants ranking, which includes more than 200 firms that submitted within the past 6-8 months, with about $40 million in design revenue in 2023. So a major, major player. Brian is an award-winning architect who focuses on combining innovative conceptual ideas and pragmatic building practices. And he's especially adept at managing multidisciplinary teams, bringing a level of quality to the design work and coordinating the best efforts of the group. I mentioned Brian's multiple decades of experience. He draws on this experience to mentor up-and-coming colleagues and help them realize their potential, and of course, deliver excellent design work and projects. Jennifer Harp is a principal and housing market mixed-use studio leader with Hord Coplan Macht. Jennifer will be presenting on trends in mixed-use multifamily, and I think a few other subsectors, maybe some higher-level stuff. Jennifer's firm is ranked number 10 on BD&C's Giants list with more than $35 million in design revenue in 2023. She has more than 18 years of experience in architecture, interiors, and graphic design, and her portfolio includes senior housing, multifamily housing, restaurants, retail, office, and hospitality. Her focus on a comprehensive design process allows client engagement throughout the entire process and ultimately results in a clear solution that produces effective, efficient, and well-designed deliverables. And Hilary DeGroff, a principal and studio practice leader with HKS, will be speaking on assisted living and memory care market trends. And HKS, of course, a giant overall, like all these firms are. HKS ranks number 13 on BD&C's multifamily giants list with more than $34 million in design revenue in 2023. Specializing in senior living design, Hilary applies her knowledge of sustainable practices and thinking to all scales of work, from community master planning and interior repositioning. She's witnessed multiple family members suffer with Alzheimer's dementia, and it drives her passion and focus on not only senior living design, but I think more importantly, just improving that aging experience. So each of our speakers is going to present for roughly 12 to 15 minutes on each subsector. They have their own PowerPoints. And we're going to start with Brian, then Jennifer, then Hilary. So we're going to kind of like pass it down the line. And of course, we'll include a Q&A session. We'd love to get your questions. That's the special part of being here live together, all of us. I think there's 300 or 400 people in the audience. So please don't hesitate to ask some questions. So Brian, if you want to take it away.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian. I'm with Niles Bolton. Looking forward to talking with you this afternoon. I'll be talking about luxury rental apartments. It's one slice of what we do here at Niles Bolton. We kind of have the DNA of housing, from student housing, which we are also pretty busy with these days, multifamily and senior. We're going to turn 50 years old, the firm will, next year. So we have offices, our main office is in Atlanta, and we have an office in Alexandria, Virginia as well. We work East Coast to West Coast. And I wanted to talk real briefly maybe about some forecasting ideas about what we can maybe expect in 2025. And this is basically through a lot of discussions with clients over the past year and just thinking about expectations there. So everyone thinks the economy is heading towards an upturn. We should be now and should be, over the course of this past year, planning for future growth, doing the density studies, looking at sites for our clients, having a grip on construction cost data in various cities across the country, and understanding market needs, trying to be sure that we can be a good thought leader in terms of unit sizes and understanding what valuable amenities are. Interest rates are ticking down, but the cost of capital is still the leading concern among among everyone. Uncertainty in the political year this year has kind of drawn to a close. So there's a little more confidence and new starts and selecting smart projects to move forward with. So a lot of the sort of what I would say is clients kind of being on the sidelines. You can start to expect them to the brave ones starting to jump out and find their deals. Given the lower debt costs. And I wouldn't say construction costs are going down, but they're tightening and they're becoming more predictable. So we're not seeing we don't expect to see the climb of construction costs through the design of a project, which can be very problematic and annoying when that happens. Work from home is still disrupting real estate use patterns and affecting multifamily project sites. Many of our clients are still favoring the suburban neighborhoods, which tend to have larger units with home offices and some mixed use opportunities in those, because placemaking increasingly involves mixing those uses, having places to go, and not segregating in a zoning fashion housing from other uses. In the South here, we've seen some falling rent. That's not necessarily the case across the country, but demand still exceeds supply. So we're not thinking that anything's really going to change there. I'm sure maybe many of you have heard that 10,000 people turn 65 every day. So aging seniors are going to start influencing the kind of housing typologies we have. And as they move from single family into luxury spaces, into communities that have graduated care, we're studying mall redevelopments into mixed use, adding housing, sometimes luxury to that, sometimes senior oriented. Costs will go up, and mainly insurance costs. So we're seeing a lot of insurance affecting pro formas more lately, and I'm not quite certain why that is, if that's the weather, but insurance has its own ways of dealing with new development projects. And we're going to have to stay sharp on creative solutions as luxury sort of bumps up against the affordability crisis in housing. And so we need to start thinking as designers what we should be investing our R&D time in. So I know in-house here, we're thinking really studying some modular projects that are getting off the ground. CLT and mass timber has been an ongoing study and pursuit of ours, getting clients used to libraries and prototypes of units, streamlining that, and then just the future in AI. So that AI is percolating into AI that takes notes for you, AI that produces renderings for you. So we're trying in our firm, trying to see how we want to meet that, kind of on our own terms. The migration in cities, this chart, and I've kind of done our research in NMHC and ULI councils that I sit on. But there's strong migration into some southern cities and some slowing migration into some cities that have been, gangbusters in the recent past, say some of these Florida cities. But this chart here really reflects where our growing opportunities are in our firm. Over the past couple of years, there's been a huge rush in completions of projects that had been on the shelf and have now, gone full steam ahead in construction. Less so with starts and permits. And we expect this graph to kind of come together and coalesce and a little more closely, similar to what you'd see like maybe in 2018, and uniting those things. A mantra, kind of in our studio, as we talk with clients, is that all new housing, and I would say all new non-subsidized housing, is luxury housing. So new housing is the housing that's going to get what you would consider luxury rents. They're usually the projects that are sited and located with perfect intent into those neighborhoods and communities that are going to succeed. So we can talk about that, like as a group, if we think, just what we think of that. It is a little bit of a conversation starter as we talk with our clients. I'm going to run through some projects. I'll try to do it fairly succinctly here, and talk about design, both exteriors and what's going on within projects. Camden Buckhead for Camden Development in Buckhead, Atlanta here, won an AIA award in 2022. We are trying to really push a lot of our clients into especially luxury projects, to push the envelope a little bit beyond maybe their comfort zone. And that really, you need to kind of step up as an architectural designer, and show a little bit more than what maybe your clients have seen in other places. So that's something we definitely try to do with this project. Step the massing. We really wanted some sort of 6th floor walkouts and in this sort of 9, 10, 11-story building, and stepping the massing. A lot of brick, a lot of Nichiha siding. Interiors that you're going to see are very, I would say, very clean and contemporary across the board on some of these new projects. The clean modernism is always going to be tempered by the natural, right? The organic wood textures, and sort of elegant natural stones. This project kind of hinged on a 2-bedroom that has windows on 3 sides. It's on this sort of the bump out component. So as you unlock sort of what a potential exciting unit could be that can help you with your massing and help you with just the general design work of your project. There are a lot of walkout balconies on this. Big pool courtyards and natural spaces for gathering, backing up to some forested areas that we're able to keep clean and untouched. Up in New Rochelle, just outside of Manhattan, a residential tower that's kind of innovative in its use of automated valet parking systems. So in order to get 430 parking spaces within this footprint, and the footprint had to include a religious space and some civic space. It had to incorporate some next level sort of parking design there. It's again, I would say, clean, contemporary, a lot of some what I would say sort of like stronger, richer jewel tones, combined with the neutral palette, right, to let that stand out. There's a pool on the roof and dog walking areas. A rich amenity package that's probably going to be familiar with the luxury clientele. Also in Atlanta, 28-story project that's just been completed actually on Peachtree. It also is containing what I would say the contemporary organic touch, both in the interiors of the units and in the the amenity spaces. You can see here some natural touches. Another project in Atlanta, West Midtown, that just won an AIA award this year, is the goat farm for Tribridge. If you're familiar with Atlanta, the existing goat farm is an arts and cultural, sort of a cultural arts district or place where artists can rent studios. There's performance spaces, some gallery spaces, and it is a kind of a joint venture between the goat farm owners and Tribridge Residential, a typical, more conventional residential developer. And so we, designed, what is essentially like the clean contemporary canvas that abuts the original, post-Civil War buildings that are still inhabited there. And very large happenings are put on here. These spaces just a few weeks ago had DJs, and the entire ground floor is art studios for rent. So we need a lot of artists living here, living above and working on the ground floor, and becomes quite a unique place, community. You can see the water tower there is original. The amenity spaces take advantage of the arts community. So all the light fixtures, murals, and artworks, and even some furniture are by local artists in Atlanta. Interiors can be a little more straightforward, but the project has large windows, which can be a little atypical for a conventional project. But in this case, the units are a bit high contrast and simple in their layout. The width for Hines is a 5-story over ground floor parking and retail space that's sort of picking up on its New Haven site with its sort of, I would call it sort of a collegiate. They wanted sort of a collegiate Gothic that hints at the industrial neighborhood that it's designed in. So we had some steel I-beam wainscoting in the design, some iron spotted brick, and loft units, and a good bit of retail there to meet the neighborhood. You get a sense of it here. It's right in the Worcester Square neighborhood there. Another Buckhead project under construction now for CA Ventures. It's going to be another, I'd say, sort of a clean glass tower with some curtain wall and window wall components. Again, the urban realm becomes really important. There's 16,000 square feet of retail here. So these projects are not necessarily purely residential in their programming. Rooftop decks are expected in outdoor space. The Westcott in Houston, Texas for Greystar, as you can kind of see in this image, maybe in this image as well, there's a big, in the luxury market, there's a big hospitality vibe, if you like. So high-end apartments can kind of take cues from luxury hotels and their offerings. So the spaces, amenity spaces, and the welcoming lobbies are meant to, evoke the clientele, if you like. Again, a lot of wood. We're seeing a lot of wood and some sort of a trend away from maybe the starkness that you've maybe seen in some previous projects of a few years ago. So we're getting these colors are a little grayer maybe than stronger jewel tones. But say, for instance, within the units, the closets are we're not in wire shelving territory where everything's been designed, 10-foot islands in some of the larger units, and big walk-in showers and tubs. This is a project in Wilmington with Cheney Paulin that has really been instrumental in revitalizing the city here. So it's a combination of 4-story wings with a sort of a mid-century modern tower element for some high-rise living, and the interiors do sort of try to present that sort of that element. Interiors are clean, and I think the luxury comes from like being able to be in a high rise in this, a new high rise in this city, and the units are cleaner and not, I wouldn't say as fussy. In the Midwest, in Cincinnati, it's a large, mostly surface parking. So some of our clients in the past few years have looked at surface parking, more suburban locations. And it's sort of, this is more of a thematic, a Cincinnati oriented Art Deco direction. A massive pool courtyard. It's a courtyard shaped project, so the resident life takes place there. Loft units and 2-story units on the top floors kind of bring some spatial dynamics. Here you can get a sense of the lobbies and some of the amenity spaces there. In this particular project, there's a little bit of the color wheel is spinning a little bit, and you get sort of some dual tones, and then maybe some grayer directions combining with those colors in there. I put this slide in because this particular client, we're doing big fitness areas, but also giving them locker rooms. So a men's locker room that has their own sauna and steam room. In this interiors package, you kind of see there are lockers, and it's meant to have that sort of country club vibe, or where it's sort of next level. This isn't just a room with some rubber flooring and a bunch of treadmills. It's trying to be upscale in that. This is the direction of the corridors. So the elevator nodes, where it's more of this jewel tones and a lot of texture. This project in Atlanta is combining a office building and a luxury apartment building, combining, and they share a courtyard there. So it's a little atypical, but it's right in Midtown, right along the connector. And so it does have a sort of a corporate vibe, sort of maybe even a little more masculine interiors and sharper, if you like, a coffee house, or sort of a coffee that's a coffee house that's a retail space that's shared by the community as well, but also for the residents. Shot of the pool courtyard, textured. This was a prescient steel structure system, a little more innovative, and a lot of rooftop space for gathering. Through this project is on the south side of Atlanta, and I wouldn't say that the exterior has much of a, it's reflecting sort of the warehouse and industrial spaces of its neighborhood, but it's on the Beltline, which is a 21-mile pedestrian loop that's almost fully completed here in Atlanta. So what, this project 20 years ago would have turned its back on what was a abandoned railroad line. Now it fronts the railroad line as a pedestrian way. And some of these out parcel buildings that were sort of just leftover industrial spaces are now being used as places to get coffee and ice cream along this really well-trafficked area in Atlanta. It's becoming a great amenity for the city. In Charlotte, Third and Urban has a great sort of a great ability to bring together adaptive reuse, office space, medical office, and combining that with residential placemaking and into a community there. And this is under construction. I want to just show kind of where, again, thematically, where some interiors are going. Going here, this is a completely different group of interiors, and yet there are some similar themes, as you can see, both design-wise and color-wise. You can see here a very straightforward palette on the exterior. Not a lot of drama with colors, but like a monochrome, 2 or 3 off-whites and charcoal brick over there. So I hope that didn't run too fast, but there you go. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm Jennifer Harp with Hord Coplan Macht. I'm a principal in the housing mixed-use studio. I focus primarily, that's flipping forward, on amenity design and interiors. We are also a multidisciplinary firm with offices in Maryland, DC Metro, Colorado, and the Carolinas. So very similar to Brian's firm. Housing is one of our major markets, similarly including market rate, senior living affordable, as well as student housing. And I'm going to cover a little bit about what we're seeing from the market rate mixed use side of things. More the focus maybe on high level trends, showing you a collage of some images. If you're interested in those projects, you can obviously go to our website, or even the project websites have great information on them. So just a quick, kind of state of the market looking back. You'll hear some common themes that Brian was sharing as well. I think the supply is leveling off a bit. It's still pretty oversaturated, but nothing like we were seeing before. So we're getting a lot more new looks at projects. We've had a lot of new starts with an eye toward getting ahead of some long entitlements and knowing that projects are having a longer, say, GMP phase now than ever before. So we're doing a lot of starts knowing that that's where it's going to start to linger. That's what we've been seeing the past year. Those longer end phases, while they've been challenging, they have provided a really unique opportunity to revisit some design decisions and to make some micro changes that we maybe were not able to make before until we were under construction. So that has been a positive aspect of that. Construction costs, we are seeing cooling off a bit, and it's really financing and equity has been more of the challenge than the hard costs for the past year. But we're still obviously seeing competition from, both of those arenas. And something else we've been seeing is diversification from our clients, both in project types, the demographics they're seeking, and even the regions they're exploring. Most of our major clients have been kind of pushing beyond their typical stopping grounds. I'm going to run through a few trends. Again, there's going to be several projects highlighted on this page, and it's something that we're seeing very consistently across all of our projects in all the markets, also regardless of location. So placemaking has really become central to our work, with new communities really being built around a mix of residential, retail, office, hotel, and a lot in conjunction with large-scale parks in these really elevated exterior environments. It's becoming very common for our projects to be multiple buildings happening at the same time for the same developer, which is really interesting as the clients are creating their own competition, for their own new projects. And we get involved in how do we differentiate between these two buildings that you're building in competition with yourselves. And placemaking has been one way that they've been doing that. And so, pushing branding, storytelling, how do we provide variety for this kind of instant creation of community? A few of these images, we're seeing that pattern in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and DC Metro area. We have similar situations in Maryland, Las Vegas, Tennessee. So it is definitely a trend that we're seeing across our markets. Coming from a placemaking perspective, how do we create these connected environments, and how do we connect the residents in the building to the place they now have chosen to live? Obviously embedding mixed uses within those buildings, providing direct access to retail and, dedicated entries from the lobbies into adjacent retail spaces, providing really great connectivity to what's happening on the street. How we orient amenity within the building is really driven a lot by the site and what's happening in the larger context of that neighborhood. And then how do we connect back to what are the amazing view sheds we have from the site to connect not just to the building, what's happening at the street, but what are those vistas? What kind of landscape do we have to take advantage of? Smaller bespoke, kind of upper level sky lounges of sorts, that those are still a really high use destination that have been getting a lot of foot traffic. So kind of the upper images you see capitalizing on, views back to the mountains, things like that. In some more suburban settings, to help with that connectivity, we're seeing, amenity being broken up and distributed amongst multiple buildings to help create more foot traffic and more of a path and connections between multiple buildings. That's becoming very common. The bottom right image, for example, is a project called the Otis in Richmond. And, amenity is located at the front of the building, pulling it out. We have this recessed terrace. It's up a level, so you get this great vista down into what's happening on the street. What you can't see in the photo off the page is there's a large brewery complex across there. So letting you have connectivity to it and great views into it while still having your sort of protected environment up above. Another trend that we're seeing getting a lot of traction on is this growing interest in a more integrated design approach, providing multiple services and disciplines on a project. People are finding it has benefit both from a design perspective and also a technical perspective. We are lucky to have, independent groups within our office that do landscape planning, interiors. So when we can get them all on board, there's a lot of benefits besides just sort of the technical. On the design side, we find we're able to craft, a stronger narrative as a team that really pushes through everything from site planning to building massing. I mean, down to even the planting materials and the signage elements. And that creation of a story together really informs the design and kind of inspires the full team, from the very beginning of the project. On the technical side, it provides a lot of drawing coordination benefits. The conversations and the presentations with the clients are streamlined and much more coordinated. And it really helps with speed to market, which is always a major factor. This project in particular is called Matson Mill. It's right outside of Philly. It's an example of one where we had all services from planning to architecture, landscape, ID, and branding. And we all started at the same time, which was another really unique feature of this project. And that really let us respond to what each other was doing instead of one discipline following the next. We were able to kind of react in real time to the decision making. We were able to get a pretty cohesive look out of this project. Diversity is something, we're seeing across our projects from a wide range. And I know Hillary's going to touch on a lot of the, active adult, more senior living focus, but from demographic standpoints, we're seeing, push on all edges of age ranges. So the 55 and up active adult market, they're looking for high-end bespoke environments, and those are being built, within the context of larger existing developments. We have a few looks at integrating market rate multifamily with active adults in the same wrapper. So that's the trend we're seeing. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we're seeing an increased interest from market rate housing developers geared towards students, whether or not it's private student housing, suite style, all the way to just trying to capture the postgraduate, kind of doctoral candidates. That's just a kind of a trend that we're seeing. So whether or not it's a market rate developer doing it or an actual student housing developer doing it, they're all kind of grabbing that student age range campus adjacent. We're also seeing, our clients looking at different project types. So as Brian was mentioning, the more suburban, like the upper top left, kind of creating this community with multiple residential buildings at the same time in a suburban environment and distributing those amenities through those. We're continuing to look at places like Richmond, Charlottesville, Pittsburgh, in addition to the major markets. So that's continuing trend with diversity of locations. And on the amenity front, our sort of mantra is, convenience is the amenity. And, similar to what Brian was saying, number one at our list right now is health and wellness of what is being requested and what people are interested in. So from on-site saunas and steam rooms to cold plunges to treatment rooms and full indoor spas and actually swimming pools we're doing in some projects. A more traditional fitness space or gym is really just one component of a much larger fitness offering that we're seeing being developed. They're taking on their own, we have one project, it operates a whole amenity floor plate, is really just wellness. And these spaces are becoming much more boutique and niche, especially if they're competing with another operator that might be, across the street on site. They want these to be, an equal but alternative experience. The fitness and wellness component has also been interesting. When we have multi-building sites, that's one thing we really hone in on to differentiate between the two buildings. If they're their own, competition, is what's the difference in the fitness and wellness offerings between building A and building B. Within the social spaces, beyond the typical lounges, club rooms, integrated cafes, exclusive speakeasies, golf game simulation type rooms that feel like sports bars that happen to be, in your building, higher end self-service mini markets. We're embedding those across almost all of our projects. As we're trying to fit more and more programming into less space, we're amenitizing every square inch. A corridor is not a corridor. It's two-person pods tucked into a wall. It's, wellness vending like you see on the upper left tucked into a corridor, what would be a typical corridor that leads you to the exterior terrace. We're creating coffee shops co-located with leasing to create a more retail-like environment within that building. How can I have a wide variety of unique experiences conveniently located in my building with convenient access to the neighborhood? That's really what we're trying to solve for in almost all of our jobs. And then when people talk about co-working, we sort of say every space is working space. With remote and flex work, every single program area in a building has the potential to be used for working or, kind of holing up for the day. And it will be used in that way. So we're taking that into consideration when in all areas of the project. We're designing private dining rooms and lounges that double as conference rooms. Power and charging stations are embedded in, every couch we have, every banquette, there's the ability to sort of hole up for the day and live there for a bit. We're always incorporating features like Zoom rooms tucked into every niche we can find, and two-person pods especially. And the sky lounges and some of those more intimate spaces, we've really noticed that those are the most popular places for people to kind of park themselves for the day. So we're always talking about how to make that, possible and keep it flexible for other uses. And then in terms of looking forward to 2025, we're not seeing any signs that those trends are going to go away. We're still getting asked for those same, if anything else is pushing it further. Many of our projects that had longer phases, say in the GMP, they're ramping back up as we're hitting the end of the year here and quickly, actually. Many projects are poised to break ground next year, and we're looking at even more geographically diverse projects with a continued strong interest in Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, the Mid-Atlantic, obviously. And we're looking forward to all this great stuff. We really appreciate your time. I want to make sure Hillary has her for a moment here. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. I'm Hillary DeGroffin with HKS, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing, specifically in senior living, active adult, and they really do translate across all of the care levels. We are seeing a lot of change on the horizon, and it feels as if there's a really big shift coming, and it has felt like that for many years, it seems, really starting to define the senior living market, how care is delivered, how people are able to really age in place longer in care levels like active adult and IL, and then how those care levels are really beginning to be blurred with the impact of other industries on senior living that really start to impact the development strategy for these projects. So some of the things that we're seeing today and potentials for the future as well, just like Jennifer just mentioned, we're seeing multiple types of flexibility. So it's not just spatial, it's really tying into the programmatic elements too. These types of spaces that can really flex between small, medium, and large spaces to accommodate different types of program elements. I was just at a conference last week where a technology group shared an AI platform that they're developing that collects data from the residents to capture their likes and dislikes. And what's interesting is they're using that data to formulate program offerings based on the interests of the current residents. And so as this type of technology really catapults and continues to grow, spatial flexibility will be key to adapt to those different resident groups, and especially as they shift over the course of years. Future adaptability that came out of the pandemic, I think we're still starting to see, especially in adjustments to dining configurations and offerings. Shifts in parking necessities. I think even prior to the pandemic, we were seeing some of these things starting to happen in more of the luxury communities, but really taking a look at the vehicular needs of the residents, going to stacked options, finding and maximizing the real estate, limiting FTEs. All of these things kind of tie in together. And so I think we're really going to be seeing flexibility as a continued trend in the future. Understanding the macro community offerings and seeing how the micro senior living communities can start to fill in the blanks and complement what is missing is definitely a strategy that we're seeing more of. And it's being done well in terms of successful partnerships. So building retail shelling opportunities into these new developments, it gives a variety of different options for anything like a dentist or a florist, a clinic, dry cleaner, pop-up markets, really, you name it, you could insert it into the retail shelling opportunities. I think health partners is something that we're going to continue to see. So those third parties that have the opportunity to come in and act as a bridge to open up to the macro community and create that connection will be key. And then again, just going back to that flexibility of space and really being able to insert program flexibly as needed. Accessibility has long been a compromise in senior housing, so we're seeing more creative solutions brought in, impacted from other markets like multifamily and hospitality. There's still workforce challenges that I think a lot of organizations are facing. They are getting more creative in terms of offering different types of amenities or shared amenities that will support their staff and the retention strategies. Here at HKS, we like to sneak peeks at what our workplace design team is incorporating into their projects to see how we could kind of leverage those ideas and pull them into senior housing. Construction methods are definitely shifting with more of a consideration around robotics, more efficiencies, more about manufacturing locations and the like. So really impacting the timelines and improving them. For me, I know that when I think about when I age and where I want to live and what I want my community to look like, I have my multi-generational neighbors who have been there for decades, and the couple who's just starting out their new family with a new baby across the street, young professionals who are renting their first apartment right out of school. I want to have that diversity. And so more and more organizations are looking for ways to partner with universities and just more of those mixed use environments where they can really impact that intergenerational need and want for the market. So how will senior living evolve into the future if we do start melding intergenerationally? I think some of those things we can start to see from our multifamily practice for sure. I think the other thing to factor in is just how care is delivered, and aging in place will certainly be a key factor in that. So then this ties into overall choice. We are seeing more and more communities focus around a certain lifestyle, really kind of branded in a sense. Health-focused communities that might have a fitness and wellness amenity focus that are unlike any other, with program options for fitness levels, across the board, foodies might be attracted to communities that have a variety of culinary offerings, customized visiting chef experiences, and partnerships with local restaurants. So we're seeing more of these kind of finessed lifestyle communities that really focus in on the individual. Obviously, culinary is always a key focus, especially in senior living, and I think that translates into other markets too. But it can really make or break a community, and so we're continuing to see the evolution of what those offerings are, and it's critical to create those flexible venues that really celebrate the choice of the individual and integrate it within the community. So marketplace, I keep going back to because we see this so often now, but it's a big concept that started out in hospitality and really moved into senior living. And this enhanced grab and go concept, it helps alleviate the need for too much all-day dining. We're also getting involved with Amazon Go with more clients where they're looking for that automation. So the spaces that morph throughout the day is also a really key factor. So that idea of never having an unactivated space, so to speak. So a coffee bar in the morning might flex into a bistro during the day, and then a happy hour bar or a chef's table experience in the evening. So with that said, there's a lot on the horizon for senior living, and I'm probably most excited about just being able to blend markets more and more as the years progress and understanding, what senior living is going to morph into in the decades to come. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to hand this back over to Dave, though.
Thanks, Hillary. Do we all want to get on camera and mic? So we do have some questions from the audience. Good, we're here. We're all here. Okay, great. I don't think I need to share my slide, but maybe I will, just to be official. It's a boring slide. It just says Q&A. Can you see that? Okay, so we have several questions from the audience. I have a few questions that I jotted down from the presentation, and if anyone wants to chat in others, great. There's still time. The first one, and it kind of stems from Brian's presentation, but certainly applies to all three of you, is like, what are the trends regarding high-end finishes? As Brian, you mentioned, like everything is luxury. And even in the subsidized part of the market, we've heard this. Like that's the brand term or the marketing term that everyone's using, luxury affordable housing. So what does that mean? And you're mentioning like the design closets and high-end materials. Like, how would you define that? Is it too broad of a?
I certainly wouldn't go as far as saying like affordable housing is luxury housing. You do have to make decisions with those upgrades, right? That said, if quartz countertops are sort of generically affordable, it might be generically affordable and be the best thing to go into an affordable project, as well. So, gosh, I don't know. That's a deep question, though.
We're seeing a lot of, desire for, we want to maintain that look, but then it has to be on a budget. So it wants to look like it's this real, beautiful, natural wood, but we might have to downplay it to veneer where it could be touched. If it's going to be up high, it might have to be a wall covering. And I feel like by having the design decision done early, we're able to hold on to that. And most people, there's a ever increasing amount of materials in projects we're seeing. It's not going down. It's just like through the roof how many we're using. And we're doing more and more customs because since we have the time, if it's new construction, it's really just on our end to coordinate it, but the cost really isn't more. So that's one way we've been able to get that really bespoke look, is customizing more and more things, knowing that it just takes longer to get them, but it's kind of preemptively, doing that ahead of time.
I would
Mhm.
echo what Jennifer shared too. I think what we've been seeing is a project team integration, from the very onset of a project. And that's been a really good way to kind of stick to a budget and make sure that the whole team is tracking, so that from the very, concept stage to all the way through to CDs, we can hold on to specific materials or design elements. And we don't have to necessarily compromise on them because we've been tracking on that throughout the course of the project.
Sorry, I wanted to stop sharing my screen. That slide is annoying, so.
Okay.
A similar question around luxury, just luxury in general as it pertains to amenities. Several attendees asked, like, how are they funded? Obviously we're talking about the rental market. Is it just kind of built into that monthly rent? Are you all seeing add-on costs, like optional luxuries, amenities? Just curious of how developers and owners deal with that. Like one famous example, like the editors always talk about, a developer told us just having free coffee in the lobby ended up being almost $50,000 costs over the course of a year. And it's not going to break the bank, of course, but is it really worth it?
I
So,
can
and
I can speak a little bit to that, Dave, just from more of an active adult market standpoint. So I would say in general, the amenity spaces are more limited than what we've seen in other care levels across senior living. More in line likely with what you would expect in multifamily. So that's one element to it. The programming element, though, there is a baseline of programming that is offered to any and all residents. And then there's additional fees associated with the above and beyond programming. Maybe it's the chef experience that comes in once a month, or the museum visit where you do have to pay extra. So I think there's a little bit of a balance in terms of the space, the real estate and the ROI on it. And that's where the flexibility really is important, but then also the programming and the operations and how that ties in.
Great.
The fitness area is part of your rent, but the personal trainer is extra.
Exactly.
The co-working lounge, the big lounge, is yours to use, but we've had some projects that had small offices, little 8x9, even smaller, little, and those are rented to residents, so they wanted an office outside of the home, they could have those as well. So they're little extras. So that does make sense.
Interesting. Okay. And Jennifer, this question was for you, but certainly could apply to all three of you. Is kind of that access, control, security, safety as it pertains to like multifamily mixed use. We're trying to break down the divides between the residents and then the on-street amenities and the amenities within the building. But of course, you want to maintain a certain level of access control and security. Are new technologies available? Anything new within the past 2 years that you're applying that is sort of a game-changing approach, or is it just kind of more of the same?
I would say definitely the key fobbing and the unique programming has helped. We have one project where we spent a lot of time in early phase design, architecture's already on board. We're trying to move the elevator core to address that. We had a retail space on the second floor that had street level access. We also have an elevator from the garage that goes up to it. So how do we control, the retail flow through the building? So they are doing it with fobs, that they can do on demand more, which is nice. So the elevator can be programmed to stop and open only on this side during certain hours. We really spent a lot of time trying to address that in early programming because it affects where the amenities are sited and where other access points are. Parcel's another one. For a while we've been trying to create dedicated entries from, so the loading dock, so they can go straight into the parcel room without having to walk all the way through, an amenity space. So I think it's really been just hyper focusing on the conversation early, and then kind of backing that into,
Design.
access.
Yeah. We've used the the app is called Latch on a couple projects. And that's proven to be pretty successful. And you literally have access to certain, if it's a multi-building project, you have access to your building and the amenities, for example, and it's very programmable and very secure. So that seems to work. Different than a fob, you know, so
Right.
it's
And
on
we've
your
seen like,
phone, but
you all have talked about, like just the incredible increase of product solutions out there, especially from like the door hardware manufacturers.
Yeah.
Is helping things, but then there are so many options. That's your job to figure out what the best approach is, I guess. So let's see. I'm just going through a list of questions. Here we go. Oh, this one was about actually, a resident of the apartment complex, but also an architect. Just, the frustration of the acoustic control. Any innovations there? I mean, obviously, it's something you're stacking families on top of families and tenants on top of, there's only so much you can do. But how are you handling that? Especially one other one mentions mass timber, which mass timber buildings becoming more prevalent, and it is an issue for these types of projects. But in general, innovation, design solutions for increased and improved acoustics.
it's difficult because it's the added elements to a wall assembly, in particular certain kinds of channels or clips that go on channels are expensive. So in a high-end project or in a condo project where you are trying to ensure you have that acoustic protection from your neighbors, that's a bit more possible. Really, even I would say even on some of these higher end, some of these projects that are getting big rents, we're really just trying to use channels, and then during construction, be sure that we're maintaining that air barrier. It's things that connect through from one unit to another that's going to transmit that sound. So we try to, be sure we're looking at those things and keeping the superintendent focused on those things, because problems, the problems aren't going to materialize until people move in. So you just need to make sure there's no blocking that's connecting units, if you like, between, because that'll enable sound to transmit.
Mm-hmm.
But there are products, but they are expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And we only use them rarely, I would say, is just as a generic answer to you.
And
It would be like value engineered out pretty quickly, because it's like, okay, people are going to deal with it. They understand what they're getting into when they're renting in a mid-rise.
Yeah, and I would add to in amenity spaces. So for instance, in senior living, we deal with that a lot in dining venues. And I would say, aside from, products we can use and being cognizant of acoustics in general, we've also found that really breaking down the spaces into more like just breaking down the scale of the spaces to create more intimate settings can really make a big impact on supporting the acoustics of the overall space. So we're not seeing these large, vast food hall-esque dining rooms anymore, but making it softer and easier for conversation has made a big impact, and it's key to the design process for sure.
And it sounds like, Hillary, you mentioned like the grab and go and Amazon Go, the smaller spaces. It's not about the coming together with the larger community within an hour and a half, 2 hour window for dinner. They don't have to, they can come and go. And are you designing multiple dining areas where they don't have to be in the cafeteria? They could also be in a little lounge.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, for instance, next to a marketplace, there might be lounge seating with cocktail tables next to the window or the lobby, so somebody can sit and have a coffee or have a quick bite with a friend as they can, see the passing of all the residents coming in and out of the building. It's always good people watching there. But those types of little touchdown spaces, I think, I would say there more of them these days and less of the formal repeat venues one after the other. There's certainly still those formal situations where like Jennifer, you were saying, like the sky lounges and more elevated experiences, but they're kind of those are like the one-offs.
Good. Okay. Do you all have time for a few more questions, or I don't want to be respective of your time?
Sure.
There's some interesting ones. Balconies. What do you think about balconies as it pertains to, your developer clients and the value it brings to the tenants? Is it worth the effort to create balcony units for everyone or a certain percentage? No thoughts on balconies? Oh, Brian, you're muted. Oh, there
Oh,
you go.
yeah. No, balconies are important. You know, yeah, across the board. I mean, I would say even I was going to say something about them being in the in the Sun Belt. More so, I like to be sure that they are designed in a way that they can be like small rooms. So there's room for furniture. The sort of the token 4.5 foot wide balcony is a bit useless in my mind. If we're talking about luxury units, I try to like get an 8 foot deep balcony that it's not necessarily a cantilevered one, but you know one that has more room-like dimensions. Where a small table and little settee or it can be furnished, right?
Mhm.
And used. Ceiling fan in there, lights and make it, you know, make it usable.
Yeah, and I feel like some of the manufacturers are expanding their product mix to, meet those needs, kind of off the shelf products. So it's not such a high cost to the project. Um, and
I would
then,
just add too, I think there's like, aside from just balconies, any opportunity to add outdoor space, regardless of climate, I think is a really positive move. It improves everyone's lives, I would say, in one way, shape, or form, and people do seek access to the outdoors. So, I think if it's something that is on the chopping block, so to speak, with any type of development or project, in an effort to save costs, it would be beneficial to look elsewhere.
thanks, Hillary. Thanks, Brian. And last question, because we're 8 minutes over. Flexibility, and you've all talked about it, but as it pertains to amenity spaces within developments, this attendee mentioned, like, could this week's yoga room be next week's business center? And obviously, there's costs and effort that goes into that, but are your clients wanting to have a little bit more flexibility to kind of shift that marketing message as needed and create different types of amenities with the same space?
Yeah, so I would, and Jennifer, I just saw you. Maybe, do you want to
It's
go
okay.
first? You go
No, I was
first.
saying, that like we haven't had to go back and do a postmortem very often. It's usually more granular on, do we need some more furnishings in these spaces or some changes? We had some projects that wrapped up right before the pandemic, and we did come back and start looking at how to create more pods in some of those kind of Zoom rooms. So, I mean, we're always mindful of how could the space be transitioned in the future. But by the time they're usually wanting to do a big amenity shift, at least in the multifamily space, they're going to do a whole refresh anyways on some of those things. So, it's not, I don't think there's an expectation that a lot of that programming is going to live for 20, 30 years.
Good one. Well, I think,
Darcy,
oh, I'm sorry. Go
sorry,
ahead,
go ahead.
Lily.
No, it's totally fine. You go ahead, wrap this up.
Yeah, I think we need to wrap it up. I just want to share my screen just for that one slide, which is, I hope you could see, the CE slide, which I think most people are. Can you see it?
Yep.
So this is just, again, the instructions for getting your CE credit. You get the certificate of attendance and AA learning units. It's all processed through our ADM platform, which Robin is a key leader in, and we have an incredible support team. So I want to thank our three speakers. Brian, thank you so much. Jennifer, thank you so much. Hillary, amazing job. You guys all presented amazing helpful information today. And then, of course, thank you to our sponsors, ExactCore, ProWid, Salto, Tamlin, and Unilock. So everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again to our expert speakers. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed
Thank you.
talking to you all.
Thank
Great
you.
stuff.
Thank
Okay.
you all.